Welcome back to OPAC. This time it's Josh edition. Welcome, Josh.
Yay. Thank you.
Josh, I know his vegan story already because I was there. But for the viewers at home, can you tell us what your first exposure to veganism was and what you thought about it?
Yeah, my first exposure to veganism, I think, came when I was in high school. Okay. But before that, I had known people that were vegetarian. My sister had gone vegetarian for a certain amount of time. So, yeah, I think it was like mid-high school, like sophomore year type of thing.
Okay, well, you said vegetarianism, but were there people who were vegan that you knew of?
In high school, I think I only knew one person that was vegan. And to answer the question from before, I didn't think that it was weird or odd. Since my sister and her friend had been vegetarian at some point, I didn't know what vegan meant. I was like, is that like the same thing? But I didn't think it was weird or anything like that. I was just like, okay.
Okay. So high school, you were exposed to a little bit of veganism and vegetarianism. Then fast forward to, I guess, you moving to Austin. Was there anything in between then?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend that I dated in my early 20s whose parents were fully vegan, and they had a vegan daughter, and my girlfriend wasn't vegan. I think she had tried, I can't remember where she was. She was somewhere in between. They were like in my 20s, like a big, I guess, you can do that because their kid was vegan from birth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was one of those things where that was more like where I guess my interest peaked a little bit. I was like, what is that? How can you do that? So
yeah. And I know sometimes I talk about the like age threshold when people start getting a little defensive or trolly about veganism, and you were definitely past that, but it didn't ever cross your mind to, I don't know, make fun of them or think it was weird or dismiss it in any way?
No, I think for me, like where the internet was isn't where it is now. I feel like a lot of the trolling comes now because people are like, they just copy and regurgitate what other people do. So they're like, haha, vegan, so stupid. And they make dumb remarks and comments. And so I didn't have any like extra influence on the outside saying, oh, that's dumb. Like I had my sister who was vegetarian at some point, and I was like, oh, okay. And now that I think about it, I had like artists, singers that I would listen to that were vegetarian.
Like
and stuff.
Punk music?
Like punk music.
Very popular in the punk scene.
Yeah. It wasn't like odd per se. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, I would say that even if the internet wasn't where it is now with the trolling and everything, you still could have had some influence in your family. Because I'm thinking like the toxic masculinity where it's like, if you don't eat meat, you're weak, you're less of a man, things like that. So you, I guess, didn't have any of that messaging growing up?
No, I don't think anybody in my family was like that then. It's interesting because no one really was opposed to it, but it wasn't really like in our space. Now I'm thinking about it, people might have kind of tried to tease my sister a little bit, kind of like, are you sure you don't want this kind of thing or whatever, like that, but not over the top.
And then fast forward to you moving to Austin. So this is where we met. So what happened for you to go vegan?
Well, like you said, we met. You were already vegan at the time, and I didn't think like anything of it. I was just like, okay, she's vegan. Having that vegan partner's family, vegan girlfriend's family.
Wait, but she wasn't vegan.
She wasn't vegan.
Oh, okay.
She was, again, she started out some kind of maybe vegetarian, but in our relationship, she kind of like went out of that, and I think that's kind of my fault. I did a bad there.
Oh, no way.
No, yeah, but I didn't like tease or anything like that. I didn't. It was just because
for her, it wasn't like fully part of who she was at that point.
I think so.
But yeah, so fast forward to here.
Yeah, so I moved here and I met you, and we would hang out and have like vegan dinner or snacks sometimes. But what ended up kind of getting me there is that you had gone to a PetSmart and you were talking about how you saw like the betta fish in tanks and the reptiles, and you were really upset and like crying about it, and so we ended up hanging out, and then you were talking about it, and you had something, I think you were wearing your
LA's Animal Save. Yeah, I was wearing my LA Animal Save sweatshirt, which is that they call it a pig vigil. When the slaughter trucks get to the slaughterhouse filled with pigs, they've arranged with the slaughter truck drivers and police and everything that the slaughter trucks are legally required to stop for a certain amount of time. And a lot of times the pigs will have been on the truck for at least 3 days, usually more, with no food or water. And this is intentional so that it's easier for them to be pushed around when it comes to getting to the slaughterhouse and the kill floor. And what people do is go to these trucks and give them water. They have these like pumps, these like backpacks with water, and they put the water through the holes in the slaughter truck. And I was wearing that sweatshirt, and I showed you a picture of a pig on a truck, and you got very emotional at that.
Yeah, so that was something that like I hadn't heard of before, and I guess I didn't give it too much thought in the past. And so hearing that and then seeing the picture, it was just their eye. It wasn't like something crazy, but I guess it was like seeing how confined they were behind this metal grate type thing.
See their emotions.
Yeah, you could feel that they were upset. Something about that hit me where I was like, I don't want to contribute to this anymore. And pretty much right away from that moment on, I was like, I can't do this. So I had to align myself with the right thing. And it wasn't, I think it's important to say that like I went vegan because of you and not for you.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people go vegan for people, for mostly I think women that they're dating. It was too real and too factual where I was like, what am I going to say? Like, oh, let me just go back to eating animals. So, yeah, that did it for me.
Yeah, definitely clear distinction. It wasn't like the fate of our relationship was dependent on whether or not you went vegan, but you were just like, this is what I got to do. And it's so cool that you didn't have any resistance at that point, being a man. That's kind of more expected just when it comes to like the ideas of masculinity and all of those false ideas of what it means to be masculine. So good for you for not having that.
Yeah, thanks.
And another part to that we've talked about, I want you to touch on real quick, is having experienced some kind of adversity and also being in your case, specifically food insecure growing up, and how that maybe also contributed to it. Do you think that did have something to do with it?
I think so. Growing up, we faced some pretty tough times, me and my sisters, my family, where we didn't always have food on the table or like a lot of food. We would be down to like a tortilla and cheese or something like that. I remember having cream of wheat like a million times. That was just like, okay, here's a bag of raisins. We're just going to eat this bag of raisins for the day. Yeah, so I think that having that experience made me have less of an attachment to food where it didn't become part of my identity. A lot of people, I think, get tied up in that where they're like, this is like either my culture, or they just obsess over eating certain food, like certain styles of food. I didn't have that luxury where I was like, oh, I always have this, I always have that. It's like it was ever changing. I could have a lot of food, I could have no food. And so, I think that definitely benefited in going vegan at this point.
When it comes to your identity, you are mostly Navajo. 60%? 65?
50%
50% Navajo.
But I have
Some Pueblo.
Yeah, some Pueblo and a little Cherokee.
Okay. Some people use this as a justification to continue consuming animals. It's like, what about natives? And it's like, well, what about natives? So, what about natives?
Well, I think that people that use Native Americans to justify killing animals, enslaving thousands of millions of beings yearly is just like an atrocity. It is a like over romanticized way of looking at things that people have latched on to justify the things that they do to animals. And they try to, there's a lot of people that will say like, oh, well, we honor the animals. And they bring that from old Native tradition where it was like a sacrifice to kill an animal. They recognize that it wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't the preference, but it also wasn't like every day, like right now, where it's just like an insane amount of suffering being caused. And funny enough, I looked into it after I became vegan, but Navajos were primarily plant-based, where they would forage and gather things. But through colonizations, they got introduced to eating more meat in their diet, mostly because of the ways that they were treated, and they were put into places where there was land where you can't grow food anymore, which is where a lot of foods like mutton stew come from. It's old sheep because they couldn't kill their animals right away. They needed them for wool and things like that. The average Indian is more in this weird hodgepodge of like a Western diet than what it traditionally was, where it was corn, beans, and squash, and that was sustainable.
Yeah. And of course, it's like, we're going to try to take this one thing that we think natives did to justify this one thing that we do, but not do any of the other things that natives did. Like, no, we don't know any other traditions. We don't know any other practices. We're just going to try to use this one thing, which is not even an accurate representation.
Yeah, I think when we talk about honoring the animals, that comes from like a very sacred way of looking at how all beings should be respected. And when you think about the word respect, you know, you wouldn't respect grandma by shooting her or stabbing her or mutilating them, impregnating her. Like, that's just not normal to associate the word respect with those things. And so I think the way that you best respect the land, nature, is to kind of leave it the fuck alone. If you truly believe that, if you like want to use this one thing where like, oh, we honor, there's no better honor than letting them be.
I just think it's so crazy that people are still trying to use that as a justification. And it erases you thinking that, oh, veganism is this white thing. Like, it erases people like you from the quote unquote movement, or just like the realization that you had. So it's, yeah, makes me really mad.
Well, what's funny when you think about it, we have this in history where the westernizing of native cultures around the world happens, where, you know, like black culture becomes like pop culture now, and white people get all the credit for things like that. But like, you have these native people that learned how to live on the land and be a part of the natural cycle of everything, and now people are like justifying it and turning it around and
like
being
the
like
homesteading movement.
Yeah, well, exactly. And you talk about like, I guess what I'm getting to is veganism, or being more plant-based, was a native thing. And people are trying to be like, oh no, it's a white thing. And so they're like taking the identity of that, and it just goes in circles where it doesn't make sense. And obviously people just don't know, and that's not by mistake.
Yeah. God, we could go on about this. To end, though, what is something that you would say to someone who maybe is in a position that you were in, where they're seeing some things about veganism here and there, and they don't really know what to do about it, or maybe there's even some resistance? What would you say to them?
I would say be curious. It doesn't take a lot of intelligence to understand what's right and wrong in this situation. And if we have the ability to not hurt animals or people or the environment, why wouldn't you take that option? You can not contribute to those things at the very least. And even if it's just for you, that's worthwhile in my opinion. And that's how things move in the right direction.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Josh.